What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of the College Lacrosse Show. I'm John Donville. I'll be joined by my co-host, Dan Arestia. On today's episode, we chat about our favorite storylines heading into the college lacrosse season, chat about our Fafo Players of the Week. You'll find out what that means, and also check out the biggest games of the week. Let's go. All right. Welcome to the College Lacrosse Show. I'm John Donville. You're Dan Arestia. Something I've wanted to do for a while, and it's here, the College Lacrosse Show. Dan, welcome.
I am so happy that I am here. I'm so happy that I am doing this. I'm excited for what this could bring to college lacrosse. I'm excited for the season to be here at last. Like, it feels like we've been building to this through fall ball, and January, February is here. So excited to get things moving.
Yeah, this really is the best time of year for lacrosse fans. You got NLL really kind of picking up. Been a crazy year so far over there, storylines everywhere. And then college lacrosse is starting. Obviously PLL comes after that. High school will be getting going pretty soon, depending on what part of the country you're in. So it's a good time of year.
Yeah, it's the best time of year. It's the best time of year. We got Sixes of Championship Series down in D.C. in just a couple of weeks. Like you said, the NLL, there are teams hitting midway points of their schedules. The season has been topsy-turvy over there with, the rocker at the bottom of the standings. Nobody saw that coming. It has been a hell of a season indoors. It's going to be great outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a new show from Lacrosse Culture Daily. Dan will be joining me every week. We hope to maybe have some guests, but really we want this to be an analysis show. We want the focus to be on college lacrosse. As you can see by the title of the show, we want to keep it as simple as possible. And just to cover some logistics, it's going to be available on YouTube every week. I think that's probably the best place to watch it. And then it'll also be available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you listen to The Back of the Bird, you'll know that Spotify does video as well. So you can watch it through video on Spotify. But we'll be there all season long, and the hope is to get it out every Thursday. So that's kind of the hope. Going to cover some stuff from the previous week every week, look at some stuff for the next week as well, and then kind of go from there. This will be just part of my coverage. I'll be doing all my stuff on Lacrosse Culture Daily. You can follow us at Lacrosse Culture Daily, and a lot of the clips will be coming out through that avenue as well. And Dan, obviously you have a lot of stuff going on as well other than this show.
Yeah, I'll have my usual vat of content at Sticks In Lacrosse. You'll be able to find the Sticks In podcast. Usually the typical Friday show will probably be there with a run-through of the games for the week and spreads and all that kind of stuff. And early in the week, we'll probably try and do a rundown of whatever the latest media poll is and how I voted in that poll, so you get a sense for kind of my contribution there. But I'm excited for this because we're trying to make this like a part of your weekly preparation for the college lacrosse weekend. This is your college game day. We're going to hit the games that need to be touched on, the big ones on the schedule, some of the ones you may have overlooked, some of the players who are standing out. I think this is going to be a really cool addition to the lacrosse landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, we are going to cover mostly Division I men's. Obviously, there's tons of other lacrosse going on. It is a topic that always comes up when you do college stuff is, people want more women's coverage, more Division II, Division III coverage. We'll try to talk about that stuff, especially the major storylines to the best of our abilities, but it is going to be mostly a Division I show, at least for now, on the men's side. That's, there's only so much time. And speaking about that time, our kind of pledge to you as hosts to the listeners is we're going to work hard at this. We're going to watch the games. We're going to stay in the stats. You watch more games, Dan, than anybody, especially in Connecticut. And, I try to do my best to watch as many as I can and certainly stay on the stats, which is kind of more my background, a bit more of a data background for that. Last thing I'll say, if you would like to sponsor us, we would love to have you. So get in contact with us through our socials. We're both pretty easy guys to find online. So we'd love to have you. Again, this is a new project for us. We're really excited to kind of see where it goes. And I'm just really fired up for the College Lacrosse Show. On that note, should we get into it?
Let's do it. Let's run through this stuff.
Okay, so we're going to start with a storyline draft. So basically what I asked Dan to do is prepare his his storylines of the season that he's most excited about, maybe most intrigued about, pissed off about, whatever. Most interested in, I think, is probably the best term. And I think we'll do this snake draft style. We'll go for maybe 3 picks each, kind of talk them through, and kind of go from there. So why don't you lead us off here?
Sure. I think my number one storyline coming into the season is I call it, finding the tremendous talent that's going to step into a tremendous opportunity. I think you look around the college lacrosse landscape right now, it's a very different kind of year. We are following what the PLL just called the greatest draft. We have some of the all-time best college lacrosse weapons that we've seen all went pro last year, right? Duke's entire attack graduated. There's a Connor Schellenberger-sized hole in Charlottesville to fill. There are opportunities everywhere at tons of programs up and down the top 20. Even a place like Cornell, there's opportunities on the defensive end in net. At Syracuse, you have Jimmy McCool stepping into an opportunity to be a netminder and play in front of play behind a defense that looks very talented and a super talented offense. But everybody has these question marks where somebody who was a special player, like a really good player, graduated. And so I look around at the landscape and I say, what tremendous talent is going to take the most of that opportunity? I think everybody's excited to see what Ben Johnston might do at Duke. He's a lot of people's kind of trendy pick to be one of the best midfielders in America. He's going to be leaned on there a lot more this year. There's that Connor Schellenberger-sized hole in Charlottesville.
Yep.
McCabe Millen is kind of the torchbearer there now. Who's going to be the guy who steps up to fill that hole with Millen? Can he do it on his own? What does the rest of that offense look like? They have some injuries. How is that already taking shape at UVA? So whether you're looking at the top of the ACC or, programs in the NEC, the MAC, other smaller conferences, everybody's got a ton of losses. Sacred Heart made the tournament. Magical Run last year. They lost a ton of guys on defense and their defensive coordinator. What is that team going to look like this year?
Yeah.
Who's going to make the most of those opportunities? That's my favorite storyline of the year.
No doubt. I think that really is the storyline, is we're really not sure what's going to happen. And I think, on that note, besides Notre Dame, I think everyone else has probably things that, questions that they got to answer. I wrote this down as kind of one of my, options for this, but just to build off what you said, I think you had all these stud freshmen. I had Duffy, Kabiri at Princeton, and Millen. One of those guys is going to probably become a superstar. The history kind of tells us that, these guys who start strong freshman year, like the jump to superstardom kind of happens pretty quick. And a lot is riding on that. And there's arguments for all of them. Kabiri probably has the best team of those guys and the best supporting cast, a bunch of other studs at Princeton. Duffy was kind of the most unknown because, we didn't see UNC in the playoffs and things like that. And then Millen probably was the best one of the bunch last year, but is going to have, so much attention on him this year with the combination of graduating the 2 best, the leading scorer of all time in Cormier and then Schellenberger, and then, losing these guys to injury, the freshmen coming in. So I'll go with my first storyline, which is actually kind of related, and it's who's the best player in the Big Ten. I think, we have the 3 kind of superstar guys leave the ACC with Schellenberger, O'Neal, Kavanaugh. I'm not really sure exactly what to make of the Big Ten this year. Smith from Hopkins is the only preseason first-team All-American from the Big Ten. Conference Player of the Year pretty much never goes to a close defenseman, regardless if they deserve it or not. So, I'm just kind of watching that, and the number of preseason All-Americans. And before you come for me, I understand preseason All-American is a silly term, a silly exercise even. But there's one from the entire Big Ten, 1 on the first team, that's Smith, 2 on the second team, which is Trainer and Frasian from Penn State, and then 1 on the third team, which is Collison. For an entire conference, which has been really good the last few years, that's really not very many guys.
Yeah, and no Terps in there.
Yeah, Eric Spanos was the only one, honorable mention.
Yeah, I think that's the wild thing is people need to, and building off of what you're kind of doing there with the Big Ten, is what is Maryland going to be?
Yeah.
Everybody, I think, at this point knows better than to bet against Tillman having a team there at Memorial Day weekend. Like it just always seems to come together, and their midfield always seems to work out well. They have these super athletic middies that they find, but they lost a ton. We'll get into this when we kind of run through their games in a bit, but when we did the top 50 players in the country in the preseason exercise for Inside Lacrosse, which was like preseason All-Americans, usually a little bit silly. Everybody does it differently. It's hard to really take anything as all that prescriptive for success. But I don't know if there was a Maryland guy in the top 50. You started to get into like maybe McNaney, maybe Braden Nurksa as you got near the bottom of the list. But the juxtaposition of Maryland's probably going to be there in the Final Four, right? With Maryland doesn't have a top 50 player in the country or like a preseason All-American, do they? And they lost Luke Weirman, who's tilted the field for them for years.
Yeah.
I think the Maryland part of the Big Ten question in particular is something that I'm excited to see kind of how that plays out in what should be a good week one game for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do this kind of snake draft style because, I wanted to lead into my second storyline, which is in 22, the ACC got hosed by the playoff committee. Last year, the Ivy League did a one-bid league for all these teams who are top 10 teams this year. The storyline is kind of, is that going to happen this year to somebody? And we were talking about the Big Ten. Is it possible that, it's the Big Ten's year? And I know you say, it wouldn't happen to them. If it can happen to the ACC teams like Duke and Notre Dame, which it did 2 years ago, then it can happen to anybody, I think.
I think the Big Ten's a wide open conference, and that sometimes can lead to that kind of thing. They spend the season beating each other up in conference, and then you get picked off because they all play a really good schedule. You get picked off out of conference, here or there, and before you know it, your RPI is in that place where you're just like, oh, I thought they would be higher. And then the committee has to make a decision. And some of this is because of the growth of lacrosse and because of programs that have, usually it's like, look, you're Duke, you're going to be there. But there's too many other programs now that can put together a tournament caliber schedule and resume and at least make it a conversation. And once it starts becoming a conversation, it becomes easier to leave teams out. I think another cool way to build on your story is Ivy got hosed last year like the ACC got hosed the year before. After the ACC got hosed, it was not pretty for everybody else who played the ACC the following year. Notre Dame went through everybody like hot knife through butter. The Ivy this year is looking loaded. They could put 4 teams in the tournament, and that still might leave out somebody who's really good. If you look at Yale, Princeton, Cornell, Penn, I think you got to put Harvard in there with Sam King as good as he is. So
Torpy at Brown
there's 5 teams. Yeah, I mean,
and Kerwin at Dartmouth is harder out than they used to be too.
That's right. And I think, you look at their talent and the way Kerwin has recruited already, he's got, 5 stars coming to Dartmouth. So I think the Ivy this year is, can they get away with, Penn always plays a great schedule. Yale has Army on the schedule this year. They have Penn State again as usual. They've got their usual good glut of games. Penn and Princeton go down to North Carolina to do that doubleheader weekend with Duke and UNC. I think you learn a lot about the Ivy kind of, even though they start late, you'll learn a lot early about them. I would kind of pick up.
Just to tie a bow on that, an interesting one to watch here is Denver as it relates to some of these things, because Denver plays Hopkins, obviously Big Ten, Ohio State, Big Ten, Cornell, and Yale. So imagine a world, especially with this Hopkins game being in Denver, where Denver beats Hopkins and OSU and then loses to Yale and Cornell, which is certainly possible. I'm not like predicting or picking anything here. I'm just saying like that's likely. They play at Cornell. Yale should be a really tough out. That's a big like 4-game swing conference over conference, and then Maryland has to go to Princeton as well. And then the last thing is Rutgers, with probably more questions than they've had in a long time with Scott and Knobloch. The other thing that can tilt these conferences is if one of these teams, these games that you're banking on helping your RPI in a normal year, maybe doesn't as much as it normally does. Right. I think that's really what happened to the ACC teams is in 22 is they're banking on, they all beat each other at the end of the year. It all gets all of them an RPI win. And then I think it was a down year for maybe Cuse that year or UNC. I can't quite remember, but some of those wins you're banking on boosting you don't. So just something to watch there. Again, I'm not necessarily predicting that, but it's happened to 2 of the 3 major conferences here pretty recently. So we'll see.
For my next storyline pick, and you said I could do one that storyline that might have me pissed off or whatever. I could get a little hot with it. I'll give you a little heat with this one.
Okay.
North Carolina, it is put up or shut up time.
Okay.
I look at that conference. Duke graduated the attack, we already said. Virginia graduated Schellenberger. They've got questions. They've got injuries. Hughes is, how are they going to be facing off? How are they going to be in goal? Obviously, the offense is great. Notre Dame, I know returns a lot, but look, Liam Enemann's gone. Pat Kavanaugh's gone. 2 or 3 close defensemen are gone. There's a lot of questions in there. North Carolina, you got Owen Duffy back. You got Brady Wambach back. He could end up being the best face-off man in the ACC this year. You went in the portal. You got Michael Gianfrancaro to play goalie. You got Andrew O'Barry to make your short stick midfield better on defense. You got Nick Dupuis and Spencer Wertheim. Your offense is getting better. You have 8 top 100 recruits. 8. I think that's more than anybody. You got the entire Petro family on your sideline right now. I look around that conference, North Carolina, there is no excuse. You need to be in the tournament this year. You need to be. You need to be notching ACC wins this year. You return enough talent and bring in enough portal, reinforcements and the caliber of players that you have. There's no reason with the recruiting that they do and how well that they've performed in the portal and all that they shouldn't be making serious noise in an ACC this year with a lot of question marks. So I'll give you a story there. I don't know, maybe that's a little too hot, but North Carolina, it's time to perform. There's no excuses this year. You have too many weapons back. You did too well in the portal. You got all the recruits. Get out there. Get that win against Duke. Get that win against, if you want, you can go into Q's, be Q's. You should be able to be competing. This should not be another at around 500-ish year for Carolina, given the talent that they have.
Yeah, I think it's all fair. And I think bringing in the grad students is going to help. The number one way to get better in college lacrosse is to get older, to bring some grown men in there, guys who have played in some big games. Gianfrancaro played in the Final Four. Wertheim obviously has played in a lot of big games at Cornell. I saw Dupuis play this summer, play box, and he is as two-handed as it comes. He's remarkably two-handed. So interesting there. I don't really have much to add there. I think well said. But why don't you keep rolling? Go one more, and then I'll give you my last one.
I'll give you one that's kind of similar to that, I guess, a little bit. But I think a fun story is, and we talked Big Ten a little bit, but can Ohio State flip the script a little bit this year? 6-9 a year ago. Not a great record, right? But, you look at a team, they're missing Bobby Van Buren for basically the entire year. He's either playing hurt or out with an injury. He is a difference maker down low in that he's an eraser. He's as good of a cover defenseman as anyone in America. I think you kind of look at their schedule last year. They played Notre Dame to a 3-goal game. That's about as close as anybody was able to play Notre Dame last year. They lose by a goal to Maryland. They lose an OT to Hopkins. They lose by a goal to Michigan. That's 3 goals away from being 9-6 instead of 6-9. This team was not far away. I kind of look at their talent and where they have players back. I think, the defense should be super athletic. I think they have some quality play in goal, whether it's Fayok or who else, might cut the start there. I am going to continue to buy stock in Jack Oldman as a faceoff specialist. Sure. I think he could really do well in the Big Ten this year. Yeah, Canadian. I saw him play at the Fall Classic as an incoming freshman, and he was rinsing Mike Sisselberg. So he's a talented kid. I think Ohio State has the tools, and the margins were so razor thin last year that you look around at the pieces that are gone and who has question marks. Ohio State very much could be looking at themselves and the way their results went last year and say, hey, why not us? Why can't we just be 1 goal better in a couple of these games? Yeah. And we're right there. We're in the mix as a top 10, top 15 kind of team.
Yeah, my hunch when it comes to one-score games is that they're mostly fluky. I think, maybe with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's not fluky after time and time again. But in college sports, year over year, I think the 1-goal stuff is pretty fluky. So I've seen some other people talk about Ohio State. I think that's a good one. They have a stud goalie, probably a very good faceoff guy, and an elite cover man. We've talked about making some noise. That's a good place to start, especially, as an upset team. If you can cover the other team's best players, your life gets a lot easier. And Van Buren is pretty impressive, man. I remember, I played against him, watched him play. For a big man, he can really move his feet. So that's a good one. That's a good one there. Anything else on Ohio State, or good to keep rolling?
No, we can keep rolling. Yeah, I'm buying stock in the Buckeyes this year.
Okay, this one I actually know you're going to agree with. So I'm pandering a little bit. But Army has at least 3 awesome players that are like, world class or at least like first team All American candidates.
Yeah.
They should be awesome. Like that's a good start for at like 3 of the most important positions. They have a lockdown cover guy, a stud face-off guy, and Plunkett is awesome. He's fun to watch. When I played for Coach Milliman at Cornell, he used to always say, "Don't be too fancy, just throw it in the goal." And Plunkett just throws it in the goal. He just fucking hammers it into the goal, and I could watch him shoot all day long. And also, I wrote down in my notes, pardon my French, 22 seniors for Army, and then in caps, fuck yeah. I will take 22 senior military personnel all day long.
I am in complete agreement. I kind of mentioned this on my podcast when I ran through my top 20 ballot.
Yeah.
I put Army, I think I had him at 6, maybe 7. And I think in the actual poll, they came in at like 13 or 14. And I was like, am I missing something? They have a first-team All-American facing off. They have a first-team All-American Schmeisser-level defenseman in AJ Pilot. They have Evan Plunkett. I think Jackson Eicher is a really, really good attackman and a physical mismatch for a lot of defensemen. I think, he kind of got to be under the radar last year as a guy missed a year with an injury and then got to play. But I really consider him like a pretty serious weapon. I look at that team and I'm like, all right, the losses are important. Knox Dent in net is a big one. And I think Reese Burek is a very big loss because he could play. He could go dodge and get you at least a slide drawn from anywhere. You just be like, all right, where does my guy least comfortable on the field? That's where I'm going, and I'm going to win from there and draw a slide or create some offense. And he could do that all the time. And that's a lot to lose. But, it's a program that's all about, look, our defense is going to be great. We're going to be good in goal. We're going to win possession. And I think it used to be
coached,
all that. Yeah, and with Coach Alberisi, like, it used to all add up. And Kyle Georgalis does an awesome job with that defense, too. It all used to add up to like Army winning games like 11-8, like that kind of thing, as their offense was like, would do enough to get it done. But now it's like, look, Evan Plunkett's a superstar. Like your offense is not just doing enough to just get it done anymore. The trick with Army always is, or I guess I kind of learned this. I think the first time I heard somebody talk about this, it was Quint. But like, if you're at a service academy, once you're getting into like late April or you're getting into May, like conference tournament time, the rigors of being at West Point mean things like sleep and rest and time to yourself to recover are not always in big supply. Yeah. And that adds up over time. And it's just a disadvantage because kids who aren't in the service academy get plenty of that. So for Army, the thing is always, it's why sometimes it's tough to pick them for Memorial Day weekend, because will the fatigue that's been wearing on you and you're maybe not getting quite as much recovery as kids in the ACC, in the Big Ten, will that catch up to you in those critical moments in conference tournaments, in, early rounds of the NCAA tournament, that kind of thing?
Yeah. On that note, the black jerseys they wear, maybe the sickest uniforms in college sports, very, very hot
they are sweet.
In late April, May. I think everything's fair there. But a good year for the service academies. Navy should be pretty good as well. Okay, just a few honorable mentions because we got to keep rolling here. I had is it finally time for Syracuse? Pretty self-explanatory there. Another good look at it here for Cuse. A good year last year. Came up against probably a bad matchup for them in Denver, and most of their guys are back. Spallina is one of probably the 2 or 3 best players in the ACC, if not the country. Was unbelievable this summer. And then Hiltz is still there. English is still there. Michael Grace is, someone we'll talk about as well. So a lot of dudes. For Cuse, I had who's going to play behind the net for Notre Dame. I think it's going to be this freshman, Picorni. But I like to say Notre Dame played the first 20 seconds of their offense like it was 2008, and the last second like it's 2024. And what I mean by that is they come with the power dodging middies, and then it was kind of Pat and Chris time. So they need to figure out that behind the net piece. As I'm sure they will. It sounds like they beat the pants off of whoever they scrimmaged last week. And then, that's all I got. Oh, I got one more. The ACC putting 4 attackmen and 4 defenders on their preseason list is fucking stupid.
It should be outlawed.
It's any fucking team of the stupid.
Week, any of that stuff. It's give me the positions on the field.
I know it's a team. One team.
One team. That's it. There's 3 attackmen that play. I don't mind doing it like John Stark, who's the SID at Q's and used to be at Towson. When he used to announce the starting lineup or post the starting lineup on social for Towson, it was 3 attackmen, 3 middies, an LSM, 2 SSDMs, a face-off guy, 3 close defensemen, and a goalie. And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Because all those guys are the starter at their respective positions. That should be what the team is. If you get to that 4th guy, he doesn't start. He's not playing. I don't know what to tell you.
It's unbelievable. And then we have the argument for who should make it if you put 4 on is so much bigger. It's like cap it at 3. You know, there's not a lot of argument.
Make it hard on yourselves.
Yeah, they're the only conference that does it that way. Make it hard
on yourselves and pick any of these guys. Tell somebody that they're not first team. Invite their parents, call their dad, and say, your son's not first team.
Especially preseason. Like, come on. It's actually, you should not want to be on preseason because then you get to build the chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, and if I see a team on the week that's like 7 attackmen, a goalie, and a face-off guy, I'm gonna fucking lose it. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, well, now we got the show. And then I actually do have one more honorable mention. With Charlotte North and Izzy Skane gone, someone's got to become the face of the women's game. Just,
that's a good shout. Yeah, that's a good shout.
Any more you got? Honorable mentions real quick.
Honorable mentions, there were 2 that I would maybe look at, which is who's going to be the star from the portal. Usually there's a portal guy who goes somewhere and is a difference maker beyond other portal guys. And then when does Jordan Faison get to rejoin Notre Dame? He's coming off a national championship game in football. That's a long season. That's a lot of wear on his body. It's probably fair to expect he will not be there right away. But when does he join, and how does Notre Dame kind of get him mixed in with whatever their offense is looking like when he does?
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a great storyline, which is Devin McClain realizing that post-college kind of sucks. And it's like, actually, I'm going to go back. Relatable.
I'm going to keep going to Notre Dame for a little while longer.
Yeah. Okay. Every player that leaves college lacrosse is like, wait, I kind of want to go back. So good for him. Okay, moving on. This is going to be a new segment for us. It is the FAFO, or I'm going to go with Fafo. And what that means is fuck around and find out. So we're going to have a couple of players, teams, however you want to do it. But we're going to bring a couple each week. You started the storyline, so I'll go first. I'm going to go with a trio of guys, Canadian defenders, Ty Banks, Levi Virch, Michael Grace. Again, in my notes, excuse the profanity, these guys will fuck your shit up. Banks, second team preseason All-American, covered Pat Kavanaugh extremely well last year. Is just a sophomore. Is just a very explosive athlete. Watched him play at the Minto this summer. He's awesome, and he's trying to. He's not a dirty player by any means, but he's trying to give it to guys. He plays hard. Yeah. He plays exactly how you want. Levi Virch at St. Joe's is just going to beat the wheels off you. That whole team is just, they exactly know their identity. And then Grace, defending Division III Player of the Year at RIT, a guy who's 3rd overall in the NLL, just a legit athlete. I'm not sure he's necessarily getting the credit he deserves here. They already have Billy Dwan. He's kind of a Billy Dwan type guy. So those 3 Canadian defenders, fuck around and find out.
I love the Levi Virch shout. I wrote about Levi for Sticks In doing a big board of draft prospects for the PLL. And the way I describe Levi Virch is there is a scene in the new movie Twisters, or new-ish movie Twisters with Glenn Powell, where they are chasing a tornado. The tornado hits like an oil refinery, and the tornado literally catches fire. It's like a fire tornado all of a sudden. I was like, that's Levi Virch. Yeah. Levi Virch is a tornado that has somehow caught fire and is just destroying everything in its path. And Michael Grace, I went to see RIT play a couple of times while he was still there, and I distinctly remember the other team, I think it was when they were scrimmaging Yale even. Yale is doing a settled clear off the end line, and Grace is bumping up to be part of like an aggressive ride. And he just he starts moving forward from down low, and he starts getting near the midfield line. I'm like, all right, that's where he's going to be. But he just keeps going, and he just keeps going. And he becomes part of their ride, like between the midline and the restraining line, I was like, oh my God. And he's just everywhere. He's covering the entire middle of the field. So I love that shout. My first guy is a transfer guy and a D3 king. I'm giving you Zach Gorno, the short stick defensive midfielder at Maryland. Yeah. He was a short stick defensive midfielder of the year at Bowdoin. Gorno has a build that is like what you start looking for in pro short stick D middies now. He's 5'11" and a rock solid 200 pounds. And he can run like crazy. He's got 208 ground balls there in 60 games. He's all over the ball. He has been an All-American a couple of times. Kyle Devitt and I put together D3 All-Americans for USA Lacrosse Magazine. And when we do that, we call around all kinds of coaches and all kinds of people. We're like, who should we look at? Who do you think's the best guy at this position, that position? And we would call and be like, all right, who's the best short stick D-midi in the country? And coaches would be like, well, you mean like apart from Gorno? Like he's in like his own category. Yeah. I think he goes to Maryland. I think it's the Big Ten. You think it's just some D3 midi over there and you want to go ahead and dodge the D3 kid? Fuck around, find out.
Love it. All right, let's do this snake style. So you go your second one.
All right, I'll give you another one. Another Canadian, actually.
Let's go.
Mitchell Dunham at Richmond.
I almost included him. Yep.
6'5", 220, a caused turnover machine. I think he had 30 or something in a season 2 years ago, 69 ground balls. Yep. Nice. He is an absolute sicko in transition. He scores points. He's like an assist guy in transition. Usually you think of a pole, it's like, all right, he's going to, Kobe Smith dodge by somebody and shoot, score. Dunham is like distributing the ball when he brings it up. I think he probably hasn't gotten enough pub because, and no disrespect to the program, not a ton of people were tuning into Mount St. Mary's games, and he was at Mount St. Mary's just destroying people. I've seen him play for Team Canada at this point. He is a really, really good LSM. You might know better than I would. I think he could be a 2-league pro kind of guy. Sure. I think if you're looking to line up next to Dunham on a face-off wing in particular, fuck around, find out.
Yeah, it's awesome with the Canadian contingent this year graduates a bunch of good guys, but specifically Dyson and Peyton, who would, led their, almost all-time legend. Not almost, Peyton broke the record, but there's some D guys in this in college right now that are fun to watch. If you are someone who thinks field lacrosse is soft, watch these guys. It's fun. Also, should mention, if you're gonna come at me and Dan for being homers of Canada and Connecticut, just don't. No shit.
Yeah, you can if you want to. I'm not gonna change.
We'll just get ahead of that.
I'm not gonna change who I am. You can hit on Connecticut if you want to.
I can hear them coming already.
I'm going to forge ahead.
Yeah. Okay, this one is not meant to be aggressive, but just kind of stating the stuff. But High Point beginning a new era of the John Crawley era. Really excited to see what they're all about. But they lose their 4 of their best players, including Maya and Van Overbeek, who are 2 of the best players ever, and have to start their path against Navy, who is very good, has a very good face-off guy, kind of like Army, just a tough out, and basically the exact opposite of what you're talking about, whereas the service academies, as the year goes on, it's early in the season, those guys are going to be fired up to go down to High Point and play in Carolina, and there's some nice weather, hopefully, and it's just a difficult way to start. So, again, not saying that they've done anything wrong, but kind of curious to see how that goes because starting with a service academy is a tough way to open up.
Yeah, that's a good shout. High Point is one of those places where, again, my early storyline, but tremendous opportunity and tremendous talent. Crawley is going to be looking to put his stamp on that program, and the way he's got to do it out of the gate is find these guys who are going to be the alphas of my offense. We're going to kind of run the show on the offense. Yep. High Point's had like a clear guy like that since Asher Olting was there. So it's been a while since I think we've been able to look at High Point and be like, who's the guy going to be here with new coach, new looking offense? What's it going to be like? Yeah,
and again, that goes for so many of these teams. Like to kind of go back to what we talked about at the start. Okay, I'll do my honorable mentions. Grand Canyon in the NCAA has a player named Garrett Beck. He squats 700 pounds. and is a bodybuilder. Fuck around and find out. Colgate going against Penn State again. I'm not even sure which way this is. I'm not sure which way this Fafo even goes. But
yeah, who's fucking around in this situation and who's finding out?
Right. Penn State is going to be pissed off. They lost last year. And then last one I got is Elijah Gash. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
leave it at that.
I heard Dowick on Lacrosse Classified. He was talking about Elijah. He's like, he's not a fighter. I was like, I think he might be. I don't know. He kind of looks like one.
It's pretty good.
I'll give you a couple honorable mentions for me. One of them I kind of hit already, but Jack Oldman, I think is a fuck around, find out kind of guy. Yep. I look at the Big Ten and the face-off situation from team to team there. Luke Weirman is gone. Justin Whitefeld is gone from Michigan. Yep. The guys who have dominated the conference really aren't have graduated, have gone pro, or have moved on. So there's an opportunity there to be the best guy in the conference. And I think Jack Oldman's got the pedigree to do it. So he's a fuck around and find out guy for me for sure. And I'll give you one more. If you went to MCLA, I'm going to D2. Dylan Renner at Adelphi, preseason player of the year in D2. He is, for my money, one of the best goalies in America, regardless of division. I have put out the outlandish take that if the PLL draft was today, I would take Emmett Carroll as the first goalie, and I would take Dylan Renner second. He is a Blaze Reardon kind of goalie. I'm not making him Blaze, but the way he plays with his body and the way he kind of cuts angles is going to remind you of that. And he is also, I think, a psychopath.
Nice.
When the ball is at the other end of the field, if you're there in person, the camera won't show it. But if you get to an Adelphi game, just keep your eyes on Renner when he's in the goal. He's going to walk around. He's going to talk to himself. He's going to talk to the sideline. He's going to bang the pipe a little bit. He's going to talk shit to the attackman if they take a bad shot. He's going to he has a lot to say. His body is very active, but when it is go time, he gets locked in, and he really is a special netminder. There is no goalie in college lacrosse last year with a better save percentage than Dylan Renner in any division. He was a special player. So if you're going to come at D2 and Dylan Renner, fuck around, find out.
Fafo, baby. Okay, so each week we're going to kind of end talking about some of these games. So basically, the plan for this week is we got 3 that we're going to kind of go in on a little bit, touch on some other ones briefly. This is kind of a looser segment that will kind of ebb and flow throughout the course of the year, as the schedule kind of dictates. But we have some good ones this week. Let's start with Loyola, Georgetown, just to kind of get us started here. 2 very good coaching staffs, obviously. Coach Toomey's 20th season there. Loyola coming off a down year, first sub-500 season since 2015. Obviously, Georgetown looking to break through, and then a weird year last year where Loyola smokes Georgetown, and then they basically go in opposite directions, from there. I guess, you can lead us off. What are you kind of watching?
You kind of mentioned there, but Loyola, got the win last year, won by 8 goals, 18-10. And then Loyola promptly lost 6 of their next 7 games, I think. So I think when I look at Loyola, I'm wondering who's going to be scoring the points. We talked, Adam Patra went pro, Evan James graduated, Davis Lindsay is playing for Tampa in a grad year, Joey Kamish graduated, Matt Houston graduated. Minikis is, here's your Connecticut bias, is by far their best offensive player. I don't think it's biased to say that. But he is one guy, and he is the only guy on the team back from last year that had more than 5 points.
Crazy.
This is an offense that needs to answer a lot of questions in a hurry. And when you look at it in this matchup, you say, all right, Minikis, he can lead us, he can start the offense. Well, he gets to have Ty Banks in his pocket for the entire afternoon. So what do you do after that? What do you do if Ty Banks gets the better of that matchup? You look at the other end of the field for Loyola. Luke Stout is the Hopkins goalie now. It's just so in flux there that it's tough to know kind of how they're going to execute against that Georgetown defense, right? If the game plan is we need Minikis to lead the offense, but he's getting Ty Banks, all right, what's the plan after that? I think that's kind of my biggest question for the game. Is this going to be something where they have a freshman in goal? Is Carter Hagan a freshman All-American, or a freshman who is an All-American at Darien? Is he going to get the start right away, or is that going to be, somebody else who maybe got a little bit more time last year.
Yep.
It's so many new faces that it's tough for me to be in a spot where I'm really feeling confident about Loyola until I kind of just learn a little more about who's going to be playing for them. Like, what are they going to look like?
Yeah, agree on everything. I was reading a very good article in the Greyhound student newspaper by David D. Domenico, so shout out to him. 22 new players for Loyola, 19 freshmen, 3 transfers. That's a lot. I think the new roster limits is like 48, so half your team is new. Almost half your team is a freshman. Like I said, in regards to UNC, the best way to get better is get older. Loyola obviously getting younger, but Toomey does this. He goes, they don't go away ever. And the other thing I had down was they're 68th in the country last year at facing off, 39%. I mean, you can't overcome that. You can overcome 45%, 48%. You don't always have to be the very best team at facing off, but you can't overcome 39%. You're just in a hole. And then last thing I'll say is shout out to Adam Patras, my teammate, one of the most underrated players in the sport right now. So shout out Potsy.
Yeah, two-league pro. Two-league pro. It's tough to find those. I think when you look at the other side of the ball, Georgetown, we talked about Banks, but I mean, even if you want to stretch the imagination, maybe it's not a stretch of the imagination. Maybe Minikis plays really well, and maybe he is able to kind of win that matchup a little bit. Anderson Moore in goal is a really good goalie. You still have to find a way to get it past him. And you mentioned Loyola's struggle facing off. James Ball is still there as a grad student at Georgetown. He is proven in that he's been successful there. Loyola is very much unproven in that spot. It's all adding up to like this field tilting afternoon where Georgetown is able to just play some make it take it. They could have some breakout stars. I think we know Aiden Carroll there is going to be the guy. He's going to be their best returning player. They lose Graham Bundy, and that's tough to replace. Guys like TJ Haley who have been part of that offense forever. But I think Jordan Ray is a guy who is maybe ready to step into a bigger role, one of those tremendous talent for a tremendous opportunity kind of guys. So Georgetown has their own batch of questions to answer. I just think they're better positioned for this game given their success facing off, in goal. They're a top cover man. They've got a clear go-to option on offense. They've got some secondary guys that I think you can get ready to trust. For me, this feels like a game Georgetown should be comfortable, but look, every single one of us probably would have said the same thing last year, would have said the same thing about Colgate and Penn State last year. And look where that got us. So we really just don't know yet, but based on the knowns we do have, I feel pretty good about the Hoyas in this game.
Yeah, February lacrosse is always a crapshoot. Another guy I'm watching is Jack Schubert from Georgetown. Only 9 games played last year. I don't think he was injured. I think he just kind of got his time later in the year. Ended up having 18 points in those 9 games. A two-handed guy. Reminds me a little bit of Ryan Siracusa at Maryland and the kid Tiernan at Michigan. Just these two-handed middies that can kind of get their own shot. One thing that was really striking last year about Georgetown, and then we'll move on, is they didn't play very many guys. They played like 7-0 guys at all these different positions. With losing some of those guys, maybe you'll see a more of a two-line approach, a classic approach, or even more than that. I think that'll help them. I think it was tough for them in the playoffs, only having so many guys. But Coach Hogan there, John Hogan's a great offensive coach. Obviously, Warren and his staff do an awesome job, as does Coach Toomey. So they'll be ready to go there. Let's move on to our second game, which is my Maryland Terrapins versus Richmond. I had in caps, both teams graduate a lot, not sure what to expect. And they really do graduate a lot. Departures for Maryland: Zappatello, Weirman, Chorus, Maltz, Brennan, Murphy, Maliver, Sharkey. It's a lot of guys. And then Dalton Young, Graham, Madonna, all out for Richmond. Obviously, Young, one of the best players to play there. Madonna had a big year too. Maryland with just an incredibly obviously odd year last year, just got on a heater in the playoffs. I'm obviously pretty biased and partial to that staff, but should be a good one this week.
Well, I think I look at this game. Basically, Richmond is where I think the losses really feel the biggest. Dalton Young playing pro, and then Graham is at Duke for a grad year. And Lance Madonna, as you said, was a special weapon for them. Dalton Young was a guy who you could put anywhere on offense.
Yeah.
Another one of those guys like attack midfield can kind of just be fluid and be successful from a ton of spots. That makes him harder to replace because it's not like you can just drop in a new attackman or a new midfielder. You kind of have to find one of each for a new Dalton Young. Where I kind of like Richmond a little bit is I already mentioned, Dunham is there. I think you look at net. I think you look at Zach Veig. He was a goalie of the year in the conference a year ago. He is, an honorable mention All-American, in that territory kind of guy. If you're a team that kind of is looking to be steadied early in the year, having a really high caliber goalie who can maybe just, it might not always steal you a win. It might not steal you a win against Maryland, but if he can energize you with saves, steal possessions here or there, you can build confidence in your team early. I think Zach Veig is a guy who can do that for them. I think the defense in front of him and him in net is going to give them the opportunity to, like I said, steal some possessions, keep games close, and just as you're trying to figure out your offense, that's, I think, all you can really ask for. So I kind of like, Richmond's going to play, as they always do, a monster of a schedule. They're going to go into the ACC. They're going to play top-tier teams. You're going to learn a lot about them, but I think I kind of like where Zach Veig can take this team as the goalie who's going to be hey, I'm going to steady the ship, guys. Follow me, and let's keep ourselves in these games with our goaltending.
Yeah, early season upsets, goaltending, good way to do that. On the goaltending note, Logan McNaney wearing number 1 this year, pretty cool. Congrats to him. Looking forward to watching him play. He's played in 3 national championship games, and he's only lost like 6 or 7 games. Just a crazy career. Because a reminder, 2 years ago he missed the year, so those losses, only really one of them, not really, only one of them he played and got hurt in that Loyola game. The point about the schedule is a good one for Richmond. They went 10-6 last year. Losses to Maryland in double OT, UVA, Duke, Georgetown, and then St. Joe's twice. And that St. Joe's team was really good with 4, 5, 6 guys who are going to play pro lacrosse.
People were picking that St. Joe's team to beat UVA in the tournament. That's how good that St. Joe's team was.
Right, and then Maryland Final Four, national championship game, UVA Final Four, Duke one step away from the Final Four, Georgetown made the quarterfinal as well. So a good year last year, but again, they lose a lot. Scoring defense last year, 3rd in the country for Richmond. Something to monitor. That is certainly got to figure to be the strength of the team this year. I don't think I have anything else on that one. You good?
I think with the Terps, there's a couple of things. Obviously, you mentioned with all the losses, that's like all right, who's playing for us this year kind of thing. There are, as they always are, Maryland was great in the portal. Got a lot of guys who I personally like. I think Noah Armitage is a really good midfielder. He had kind of a down year at Stony Brook a year ago, but I think he's highly regarded in the indoor game. I think his size and agility kind of give him a build that you kind of like in the Big Ten, those big-bodied midfielders who can kind of lean on guys. Bryce Ford from Fairfield, he was a captain for them twice. As you're looking to replace a ton of guys, you need some leadership. As you said, you get older, a guy who's been a 2-time captain of a team and can, explain to these guys kind of what it's like at his age, things he's seen, his experiences. And then they got my D3 Kings. Of course, we already talked about Gorno, but Jack Dowd from Salisbury, a 6'5", 220-pound midfielder of the year in D3 who can do some serious damage, has pro potential. So he is one of those guys where I talked about a storyline being like, who can be the portal star kind of out of nowhere or a major contributor. The way that Jack Boyden went from D3 to Tufts or D3 Tufts to Virginia and had success, I think you could see Jack Dowd go from D3 Salisbury to Maryland and be like a top 6 important player for them.
Yeah, Charlie Bertrand, obviously another good example of that, a guy who did that path as well. So if you're keeping track at home, Maryland's adding the D3 Midi of the Year and Defensive Midi of the Year. So a good way to throw a couple grown men into your midfield. All right, last game of the week that we're going to go deep on. Obviously the biggest matchup of the week, 2 top 10 teams. Credit to both these teams for starting with a big one, week 1, and that is Denver Hopkins. Major storylines I had, a major out-of-conference matchup, probably more important for Denver, given that potential strength of schedule stuff down the line. DU obviously pulled off the crazy win at Hopkins last year, really set themselves up for a great season, and Hopkins has to replace an awful lot, including their entire rope unit is gone. Denver has one of the best rope units in the country, so I think that's something interesting to look at. New offensive coordinator at Hopkins. We talked about Crawley going to High Point. It's Brian Kelly taking over. And then like a fan base who always has a good quarterback, Denver has to worry about faceoffs this year for the first time in like a decade and a half. And
I think so.
Welcome to
Since
how
like
everybody
before
else
Baptiste.
feels. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to how everybody else feels. You had three of the best guys overlapping. You didn't even need TD Earl, and then you got him anyways. And
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think I think my what I'm looking for kind of in this game is, and you kind of mentioned face-offs being one of them. I'm a fan of Joe Hobart, who's a freshman at Hopkins as a face-off specialist. I think he's super talented. And he's very, very athletic. So I like kind of Joe Hobart there. Looking at the Hopkins rope unit, you mentioned they replaced the whole thing. They went into the portal to do that. I think Patrick Hackler is a guy, he comes from Yale. He was Yale's captain. Again, you talk about bringing some leadership for a team that's going to have some new faces. And Hackler did a little bit of everything at Yale. Like he was facing off. He was on wings. He was a part of the top short stick D midi pair. He could be their man down midfielder. And then he played offense for them. Like he would stay on the field. He not even always as like a second line midfield guy. He would just go D to O and be like, I'm still fresh and still could dodge and, dodge to score kind of guy. So Hackler is a guy who I think can really, really change the dynamics of your midfield as just an individual. He's another one of those guys, we talked about Dalton Young. You need kind of two guys to replace him. Replacing Hackler probably takes more than one person as well because of how many things he did for Yale. So he is a big boost to the Hopkins defensive midfield for sure.
Yep.
And then I think, the Hopkins offense is going to be who's quarterbacking this thing.
Sure. Angeles
was kind of the primary distributor of the ball a year ago. The guy playing behind the net and leading assist man for them. Who is that going to be this year? It's like, Melendez is a guy who had kind of a weird year last year as they had this glut of offensive talent and that was, senior or grad students. And he kind of just sort of felt like the odd man out a little bit. So is he a guy who's going to play at X for you? He always felt like he was better from the righty wing. Is Jimmy Ayers going to have a bigger role? What is it going to look like? How does Coach Milliman kind of build the offense with a guy at X that's still maybe kind of a bit of an unknown? So that's the Hopkins side of thing for me is facing off. Can you do it with a freshman and win? What does the rope unit look like beyond Hackler, who I definitely trust? And then on the offensive side, the defensive side of the ball, I think Hopkins can feel great. I think they're looking really good over there. The offensive side of the ball is who are these faces and who's going to be stepping into these roles? Most of all, who's going to be the primary assist guy on this team? Who's going to be the distributor?
Yeah, I think all fair. Super weird year for Melendez. You're all over it. Was actually sort of didn't have a ton of shots. That's the first thought was shooting slump. Second thought is turnovers. Didn't have a ton of those either. Just kind of a weird year, and that happens sometimes. I would love for him to come out and take 12 shots tomorrow and just kind of see what happens there. The defense is good. The D-coach there, Jameson, I think is really good, really sharp. Just is a tough out for people. A couple other notes I had. The kid Hunter Chauvette is a standing member of the Fafo All-Americans. He pulls it from everywhere. I wish I had the confidence he has, and I think a lot of people saw the breakdown I did of the Denver defense. They really pack it in. Sometimes I think teams either don't have the range or don't have the kind of gumption to just step in and let it fly. He does have.
He has never met a shot he didn't like. He's never met a shot he didn't like.
And I'm not criticizing him at all. I'm actually saying it out of admiration because he hits a lot of shots too. Brooks English, I think, should be back from injury. Canadian guy should help. And then the last note I had was the kid Kilrain, the defender. I think is closer to Schroeder and Sean Light than probably he's getting credit for. So with Smith and Kilrain, that kid's a beast, and he's got some chops in transition too. So I like watching him play.
He's part of this class of defensemen that were freshmen a year ago who are instant impact guys. Kilrain, sure. Ty Banks, Sean Light, AJ Marsh at Navy. These guys are All-American levels from day one. It's a really special class of defensemen that are that are sophomores this year. And we should also shout out for Hopkins. I picked Matt Collison to win midfielder of the year, maybe aggressive, but I think Matty is a guy where it's like trying to defend the bowling ball from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he's like Indiana Jones is running away from this boulder that's just going to crush everything in its path. Matt Collison's the boulder. I think he's going to demand a pole immediately. Obviously, he's already demanded one. But he's also going to demand a slide basically the minute his dodge starts. If you let him just kind of get leverage and start getting top side, like it's just too late for you already. So I think Matt Collison is a guy who's going to be, we talked about looking for a distributor. That's not really what he is. But if if Hopkins needs a goal and there's 10 seconds left, I would imagine the play is getting drawn up and starting with Matt Collison dodging somehow or trying to create with him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. One of the best rope units in the country for Denver with Casey Wilson, and I think Freehill plays up there, I believe. So that's going to be really, I think, the huge matchup is, can Collison win? Can he draw slides? Denver, like I showed in that video, really packs it in, makes it kind of hard to guard huge guys like Collison. So I think he's got to make his moves early, try to keep hands off of him, and he's a load when he gets going. Also went to my high school. Again, don't call me a homer. I don't care.
Again, I would also say for Denver, can the Minnie Mouse be the guy? Can Cody Malowski be the guy?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a need for a quarterback. JJ Shilstrop's been doing that job since 2022, and
Sure.
he is not walking through that door. So who's going to be the ball dominant player for Denver? It sounds like it's going to be Malowski. So are you ready for that? Are you ready for an afternoon where Scott Smith is attached to you all day? It's a big ask for somebody who's stepping into that kind of leadership and offensive alpha role, maybe for the first time at this level.
Totally. And who's going to draw slides? That's kind of what I had written down for Denver. I think that was pretty clearly the MO against them late in the playoffs last year. They lose a couple guys like Lampert and Silstrop who could help them with that. You got to draw slides, and obviously when guys are Canadian, that's just going to be even more of a default is try to be slow to go. So they're going to have to prove they can win. If you watch the Minto Cup this year, you should have no doubts that Cody Malowski is up to it. He's legitness, as the kids like to say. All right, a couple just quick hitters. I know you wanted to talk about this, but Iona making their Division I debut this week.
Yeah, Iona, welcome to D1. First game this week, they're playing Hofstra. We won't be picking games or anything like that, but by Iona, you are a 13-goal underdog, so Vegas does not trust you very much in your first D1 game. But look, I think Chad Sermon's a good coach. I look at where Iona is. There's a wealth of high school talent in that area. That's a hotbed of lacrosse where Iona is. I think with the coach and the location of the school and kind of the ability to find recruits there, I think Iona's a program that could be a comer in a hurry. I think they could kind of catch up to people in a hurry. So Iona, welcome to D1. You got Hofstra and you're a 13-goal dog, so people don't trust you, but I do, Iona. Welcome to D1. Happy to have more teams, more growth. We will do the same for Mercyhurst when they get started in a couple of weeks. But I'm happy to see Iona join the ranks as, again, a hotbed area. And a good coach. The pieces are right there. You got the right stuff in place for Iona to be successful. Maybe not year one. Win a few games this year, it'll feel good. But with a couple good recruiting classes, they'll be on their way.
Yeah, Curtis Corley and Brendan Kavanaugh, the assistant coaches there, pretty notable type of guys for a first-year program. I read this morning that Mr. Kavanaugh played hockey at Iona, so pretty cool little family connection there. Rutgers Lehigh. Rutgers has to replace a lot. They kind of had the end of the Final Four team last year. There's a lot of Scarlet Knights in professional lacrosse. It is hard to continuously replace professional level players, but they've done it over the past few years. So no reason to think they can't do it again. Lehigh, especially at Lehigh, is just always going to be a hard place to play. The Colin Kirsch Bowl this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. I look at Rutgers. I saw them play in the fall. They scrimmaged with Brown, and they looked like a team in the fall. This was October. It's early fall. They're still very much like their offense had guys moving to all different kinds of spots. Dodges were coming from all different kinds of spots. They had even guys injured then, so they were trying to figure it out a little bit. So They look like they look like a talented team. They have some guys who can win off the dodge. There were some freshmen out there who looked impressive. I think they'll be okay at the faceoff spot, which is big. They got Matt Paletto out of Union, who was a D3 faceoff specialist of the year.
Sure.
And then they have Ethan Barnard came from Bowdoin, another D3 guy. That's kind of going to be their two-headed D3 monster facing off. But Paletto used to look like he had kind of the advantage in the scrimmage and was winning, was successful in their scrimmages, was by a wide margin. So I think that can help. An offense that's coming together early is just the extra possessions, the extra opportunities, and to kind of figure it out. And for Lehigh, look, you don't have Scott Cole anymore, and that's big. But it's I guess a team that I wouldn't be surprised if they made noise in the Patriot League, because the Patriot League is just that kind of conference. Yeah. But I feel like Rutgers is going to be the team that on talent and with the portal success and stuff like that, I feel like Rutgers is going to have an edge in that game.
No doubt. And then this one, I don't really think we need to go deep here because we already talked about it, but Utah heading up to Ohio State. Utah also loses some really good players off their first tournament, I believe their first tournament last year, and a really nice run for them. And then Ohio State looking, I think, kind of a revenge year here for the Buckeyes. I think you went on pretty good earlier about it. So anything else on that one?
I think Utah's Ryan Steins is a star. He's a North Carolina kid who
came up to Mimico this summer. Yep.
Yeah, he's a Carolina kid who went out west to play, to get an opportunity, I think, to really play right away, and has made the most of it. He's a goal-scoring machine. So I think he's going to be the key guy for them on offense. He's going to be the guy who has to put the ball in the net the most, at least in the early going. So if you're in the Utah area and you're trying to get to a game, he's worth the price of admission on his own. He's legit. So I think that's where Utah's kind of strength is going to be, is with guys like him on offense. And then you just kind of, they return Colin Lenskold in net, Connecticut kid. There's the bias.
There you go.
But having a goalie who's back and experienced helps as you're replacing guys elsewhere. Those are the places where you want to have experience, like a proven goal scorer, a solid goalie who has experience. Like that's how you steady things early in a season where you're replacing a lot of faces. Yep,
no doubt. The higher the scoring in this game, the better for Utah. You would imagine. So, this Buckeyes defense, I think, has a chance to obviously be pretty good. They run a good ship over there. So, looking forward to that one. All right, college lacrosse is back. I'm playing this weekend. Are you going to any games?
I am going to try and get up to a scrimmage of all things.
Nice.
Because the Ivy League is what it is, and they start a little bit later than everybody else. The Ivy's first day of practice is February 1st. And I believe that Yale is spending their first practice scrimmaging UMass. So I'm going to try and check out Coach Shea and Coach Cannella. They are very, very old, dear friends. So even though they don't have a regular season meeting this year, they try and mix it up every year and, get to spend some time together. So I will go up and grab a couple of Sally's Pies and enjoy a little Yale and UMass action, I think. And then I will put my ESPN Plus to work after that. Catch up on a whole bunch of games. Get ready to re-up the Flow Live Sports, the Big Ten Plus, all those other networks that social media will slander all day on Saturday. That's how the season is really back.
The only thing that pisses me off more than 4 attackmen and defenders on the All-ACC team is Flow Live Sports.
Flow Live Sports. We're ready for a $300, whatever it costs, camera on Mars to watch Villanova. It's going to be great.
Hey, maybe it could be a write-off this year. But, all right, man. Thanks for doing this. We'll see all the listeners next Thursday. This is the first ever edition of what we hope becomes a great tradition in the College Lacrosse Show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.